The search for two missing children in rural Pictou County is now into its fifth day, and there's still no sign of 6-year-old Lily Sullivan and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan.
I see from the outside, there's only two options here. Criminal involvement, search, they haven't found him yet. They legitimately got lost in the woods. Gave you a clue when they said no abduction. That's a big statement to make at this early in the game.
An unconventional disappearance and a web of silence. This situation does not appear to be a typical missing persons case. Prior to May 1st, 2025, an isolated residence, deeply situated within the wooded area of Lansdowne Station, Nova Scotia, was home to 7 individuals. The household consisted of stepfather Daniel Martel and the biological mother, Malaya Brooks Murray, along with their 2 young children. At the center of this mystery, 6-year-old Lily and her 4-year-old brother Jack. Also present were both grandmothers, Malaya's mother and Daniel's mother, and one additional family member whose identity remained unconfirmed, potentially another relative or even Daniel's child from a previous relationship. A critical detail about this dwelling was the absence of internal cameras. This, combined with the surrounding dense forest, immediately indicated that any search for answers in the area would be profoundly challenging from the outset. The sheer isolation of their living environment immediately raised a chilling question for investigators. If no one from outside the family could have entered, then who, in God's name, took the 2 children the fateful day and conflicting accounts? On the afternoon of May the 1st, 2025, Lily and Jack were last seen. According to all reports, they were playing normally inside the house, having been kept home from Salt Springs Elementary School on both May 1st and 2nd, due to Lily's reported cough. This followed a professional development day on April 30th, when there was no school. This public sighting with family members on May the 1st is crucial, a fact later confirmed by RCMP Corporal Sandy Matharu of the Northeast Nova Major Crime Unit, though the precise location has not been disclosed publicly. However, stepfather Daniel Martel's subsequent statement immediately introduced a discordant note. He claimed he only saw Lily, not Jack, yet oddly provided incredibly detailed descriptions of both children's attire, Lily in pink boots, and Jack in blue dinosaur boots and a diaper. He even mentioned Lily's backpack with white strawberries and Jack's pull-up, implying they were prepared to go outdoors. How could an individual claim not to have seen one child, yet recall such specific clothing details, down to the accessories? This did not appear to be a mere oversight. It felt like a calculated statement, meticulously prepared for an unknown purpose. Then, on the morning of May the 2nd, the very day the children vanished, Malaya Brooks Murray offered an equally perplexing account. She asserted she heard her children playing next to her bedroom, drifting in and out of sleep, only to awaken and discover them gone. She insisted she heard no door open, no unusual sounds. Daniel himself later described the backsliding door as almost like silent to hear it sliding, offering a potential explanation for the lack of sound. Yet this is where the silence becomes truly deafening. Not a single one of the 7 adults in that house reported hearing anything out of the ordinary that morning. A house full of people, yet no one heard a sound. No one saw a thing. Was this silence merely accidental, or was it deliberate discrepancies in reporting and an unfruitful search between 800 a.m. and 900 a.m.? The initial missing persons call was placed, but even this critical detail is obscured by a time discrepancy. RCMP records confirm they received the call at 800 a.m. However, Malaya stated she made her call at 900 a.m., and some reports even place her call at approximately 1000 a.m. Who placed the initial call, and why the hour-long discrepancy, or more in missing persons cases, every second is vital. Was someone attempting to manipulate the timeline, to reconstruct the scene and their statements for an unknown purpose. From May 2nd to May 6th, what became one of Nova Scotia's most extensive search operations unfolded. It was deemed one of the most exhaustive in the province's history, involving over a dozen specialized units, national agencies like the National Centre for Missing Persons and the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, forensic laboratories, behavioral analysts, divers, and helicopters. Over 5.5 square kilometers of rugged, heavily wooded terrain were meticulously combed by ground teams, aerial drones, and tracking dogs for 5 consecutive days, engaging up to 160 trained volunteer searchers. Yet despite this monumental effort, not a single piece of physical evidence was discovered. No shoes, no clothing, no drag marks, no blood, no unusual smells. A faint footprint was located near a pipeline, but its owner remains unidentified. If this were a simple case of children wandering off, a theory initially considered by police, why were there absolutely no traces of them? How could a child in a diaper and a small girl simply vanish from a house undetected, leaving nothing behind? The wandered-off theory quickly crumbled as day after day passed, and the searches yielded no results. On May the 7th, just 5 days into the search, the RCMP scaled back efforts with Staff Sergeant Curtis McKinnon stating it was unlikely the children could have survived several days in the heavily wooded area, and the likelihood they were alive was very low. The underwater recovery team also searched nearby lakes on May 8th and 9th, but found no evidence. This immediate shift from a massive search to scaling back with no discoveries left investigators with far more troubling possibilities, indicating the focus was already changing. Proliferating red flags and shifting focus. From May the 7th to May 30th, the red flags truly began to proliferate, pointing not outwards, but inwards, towards those closest to the children. Daniel Martel began making public appearances, but his choice of platform was revealing. He sought out smaller YouTube channels to tell his story, conspicuously avoiding larger mainstream media outlets. He even offered to undergo a polygraph test, a detail he himself highlighted, but with an absurd condition only if it was administered by someone he trusted, flown in from elsewhere. He later claimed the results were good in my favor, but could not share them. His demeanor during these appearances was chillingly clinical, almost rehearsed, devoid of genuine emotion. Furthermore, Daniel was under a child protection order, forbidden from seeing his biological daughter Meadow, and lost custody of her immediately following the incident, an action that speaks volumes about concerns raised by child protection services. Malaya, the biological mother, presented an equally concerning picture. Her explanation for the morning of May the 2nd remained disturbingly vague. She skipped coordinated search briefings, left the home by ambulance, and vanished from social media after conspicuously changing her relationship status to single. Even more troubling, the RCMP reportedly advised her to remain silent, a suggestion typically reserved for those who are more than mere witnesses. Police then seized electronic devices from both Daniel and Malaya, including their phones and laptops, for forensic analysis. This action is not standard procedure for a routine missing person search. It is a step taken when criminal suspicion has taken root. Why did Daniel lose custody of his child? And why did both adults exhibit such evasive, almost defensive behavior instead of publicly pleading for help from the community? Oddly, even the biological father, Cody, has been conspicuously absent in this case. Not one official statement, no confirmed sighting, with rumors swirling about house arrest or court restrictions, though nothing has been verified. Conflicting statements from Cody's own family about when the children were last seen also raised further questions. Daniel's mother is believed to be the last adult to see the children alive, yet she has remained entirely out of public view. despite living on the same property where searches were conducted. RCMP updates, polygraphs, and lingering questions. On June 11th, a significant update from the RCMP provided little clarity but much frustration, while simultaneously confirming deeply unsettling details. They officially announced they had formally interviewed 54 people, a number that had steadily climbed from an initial 35, and collected hundreds of hours of surveillance video dating from April 28th to May 2nd, meticulously combing through the Gairloch Road corridor, a rural stretch that may hold secrets yet to be unearthed. Crucially, they confirmed that some of these 54 individuals had undergone polygraph tests, administered by their Truth Verification Unit, a tool described by policing experts like Chris Lewis, a former polygraph examiner for the Ontario Provincial Police, as surgical, highly selective, and resource-driven, used specifically when the focus narrows to people, not places. Lewis explicitly stated, "You don't do polygraph tests and waste that resource on people that maybe just saw something, or heard something, or is a real remote suspect. That's not the way it works. This implies investigators believe someone knows more than they are revealing, or for some reason is not being truthful." Yet the RCMP flatly refused to disclose who was tested or what the results were, citing that they are not able to share specifics of their use in regard to this investigation. This lack of transparency, coupled with the implications of polygraph use, created an information vacuum. They also emphasized that despite extensive searches of the property, including wells, mine shafts, septic systems, and culverts, no new search areas had been identified as a direct result of these efforts, confirming their belief that the children are likely no longer out there in the wilderness. So then, where are they? And if someone failed a polygraph test, a tool used to detect deception, suggesting the suspects may already be known, why is the public not being informed? This silence, in the face of such a high-stakes investigation, is truly unsettling. Adding to the list of bewildering decisions, the RCMP's public appeal for surrounding video camera footage, specifically dashcam footage along Gairloch Road between noon on April 28th and noon on May 2nd, did not come until May 28th, nearly a month after the children disappeared. In our digital age, 30 days is an eternity. Cameras overwrite data, devices are wiped, and memories fade. Why such a long delay? Why risk losing critical evidence that could have provided a concrete timeline or identified movements? Was this a monumental oversight? Or was someone deliberately delaying the request to ensure the data was erased? A disturbing pattern and a criminal turn. When all these suspicious behaviors, the glaring contradictions in narratives, and the baffling investigative choices are aggregated, a profoundly disturbing pattern emerges within that household. Not a single family member could definitively confirm the exact last moment they saw Lily and Jack. No one heard anything unusual on the morning of May 2nd, despite 7 adults being present. The statements provided, particularly between Daniel and Malaya, simply do not align. The sheer, almost too perfect silence from everyone in that home, combined with their post-disappearance actions, strongly suggests one chilling hypothesis: someone knows the truth, or perhaps the entire group is actively concealing something significant. Based on the evidence, or the profound lack of it, especially from outside the home, the investigative focus has irrevocably shifted. There are no signs of outside intrusion. There is no credible evidence whatsoever that these 2 small children left the house willingly on their own. With no internal cameras, no physical evidence found outside the home, and no independent witnesses, only those within the house remain as the undeniable focal point of this tragic mystery. This is no longer just a missing persons case. A former police investigator in Halifax, Jim Hoskins, believes it is now a criminal investigation. It has morphed into something far more sinister, leaning heavily towards possibilities such as child concealment, interference with custody, or even the devastating reality that an act of harm occurred and has been meticulously covered up. The public's trust is clearly eroding. When sensitive tools like polygraphs are deployed and met with vague reassurances, it feels less like caution and more like concealment. The longer the silence lingers, the more it sounds like a message that someone knows the truth and someone is being protected. This is not bureaucracy. This is a national-scale attempt to peel back the layers of a mystery that is deeper than anyone imagined, and the public is owed clarity, not comfort. The question now is, what do you think happened to Lily and Jack Sullivan? And will the truth, shrouded in this unsettling silence, ever truly emerge?